90% of the thinking on great design is actually happening only for 10% of the world.
You would soon have a generation which has not seen an old-fashioned ceiling fan is now used to what it's called the BLDC, the fans, right? Which again make no noise, right? Like they're almost silent.
Let the vacuum decide how dusty your house is. Otherwise, you have to set it yourself at low, medium, high.
Every company in the world gets feedback. The question is also, do you have a system to collect the feedback and then use it in some way?
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices. This time we're going to talk about, no, we're not going to talk about AI for sure. Like we have had enough of that. We're going to talk about design and we're going to talk about designing for India. And we are going to talk to an Indian company, which is, if you like me are addicted to watching reels before going to sleep, I'm sure it comes to you quite often, which is again a good testament of their marketing success. So I'd like to welcome Shalabh Gupta and Gazal Kalra of Nuuk. Have I pronounced the name right?
Yes.
Bullseye.
Bullseye. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of our audiences have seen, because you guys are really very visible. And again, it's great marketing in the sense that it's very good content too. Uh, and you've cracked that social piece very well. It's a very visible brand in India these days. And is that your primary marketing strategy?
I think that.
Yeah.
Well, our primary marketing strategy, and I don't mean to be all high and mighty here, is to make great products.
Yeah.
Because we feel that although it is hard to build social worthy content and a buzzy online presence, make good performance marketing content, what is extremely hard, and there's no shortcut to that, is to make great products that combine design and performance. And again, I know it comes across as this very rehearsed kind of thing, but that's genuinely what we thought of on day zero when Ghazal and I sat down and started thinking about this company. That at the center, we said there are three pillars to this company: product, sales, and brand. And product sits at, it's not just one pillar, actually, it's kind of the core of this.
Yeah.
A great product is extremely hard to do, but it's relatively easy to market and sell, and it's infectious. When the product is good, you feel confident about it. Your sales team feels confident pitching it to sales partners. Your brand team and your content team feels great about making content. That pride of product that we feel and we work hard to build in our products, that comes through, I think, in the confidence and creativity also of the content. So that's what we believe. A lot of this is, of course, DNA of our own DNA. I think we like to have a bit of fun with content. We ourselves are big consumers of reels before bedtime, so I think that makes a difference. And some of this is hiring. We exercise great care in who we hire across all teams, and the content team and the brand team is no different. So these are young people who have great ideas, and we try to, as founders, maintain a good balance between allowing that freedom to creativity and at the same time also making sure it's on brand.
Yeah.
And perhaps all of that is what you're seeing.
No, and it's again great. It's very different from what you see in the rest of your timeline. The And the basic thing I wanted to discuss with you is design, right? How do you design for India? I've always been fascinated by great design, and I always think, for instance, that the inflection point for me of being very impressed with design that's very non-Indian in a way, is the fact that in my childhood, my aunt used to be abroad, and she used to bring in a lot of IKEA products which were knocked down. Now, okay, IKEA is great design, but for me as a child, the fascination was you're putting it up yourself, right? You're
Right.
using those keys and stuff, and it was simple, but it was very different from what we had in India at that point of time, right? I get that kind of a vibe when I'm looking at your products.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of companies which are very good with design, but you know, uh, me having covered tech now for 20 years, like, I can say that the best designs are maybe the most minimalist designs, right? These are the guys who are not doing the red and yellow lights, and like, they're not shouting out, right? Um, and I get that kind of a feel having used two of your products so far. I just reviewed the BFF, I think it's called, right? The handle
Yes.
fan, which I found very impressive. And again, it's different. It's also different because I was incidentally in Malaysia last week. Okay, and there is everybody is carrying these fans, and I came back, and that's when I started seeing your reels, and I realized that, hey, this is very different from literally everything that I've seen over that 1 week I spent there, where everybody is actually carrying this, right?
Yeah.
So how do you look at design? How do you conceptualize it? And is it very difficult or different doing that for the Indian market? Because then you have to also keep a lot of other factors in mind, which, especially when you talk about Scandinavian design, it doesn't really ever have to worry about dust or grime or things like that, right? Which means they can use a lot of colors, which Indian companies are very, wary of using. Yeah. So if you could just, walk us through that process.
No, I'm glad that A, you've nooked it, so you've used our
Yeah.
products. And second, that you appreciate the details in the design, right?
Yeah.
So actually, it's the idea of building something designed first for India started about 10 years ago. I was a student at Stanford at the business school.
Hmm.
And for a
Yeah.
year, I'd cross-registered at the Stanford Design School. And
Mm.
this was, cross-functional, sort of 40 kids from across Stanford who were selected on an application basis to come and work on design challenges from across the world. My project was for Africa, by the way. So,
Yeah.
I was working with someone from industrial design, someone who was a doctor, I was from the business school, and someone who was a psychology student at Stanford. And that was the first time, and Shalabh and I were there. And, during our discussions, I would say that 90% of the thinking on great design is actually happening only for 10% of the world, which was, while we were in the US, you see great design thinking happening there, right? And we felt that, when we were convinced that something needs to happen in that space for the rest of the 90% of the world. And by design, by the way, like Stanford Design School is not creative, just creative sketching, etc. It's human centered design, right? It
Yeah.
is really understanding the context and the culture, and then designing products or services that make using those products and services a delight, right?
Yeah.
And we thought about this back then, but at that time we felt that the time in India wasn't right, because one of the things that has changed, and you're also saying that there's a difference, is that one, the new India is more aware, so there is awareness
Yes.
about the that something better can be done in a lot of these things. The second is, we as a country and as consumers have moved from being price or cost sensitive to being value conscious, right, or value driven. And that you're seeing happening across the board, where, and the underlying trend is because our per capita incomes have risen, right?
Yeah.
Which is that when presented with something better, you also have the affluence or the spending ability to actually make a purchase or buy that. And even though that per capita has increased in about, if you look at the numbers, by about 30%, but underlying ability to spend is much more, right? And we keep thinking about it, which is that new India is not having to save to buy a house or to build assets, because that their parents and grandparents have done. So even with
Yeah.
the slightly increased income, their spending is much more. So now they're aware, they're aspirational, and they have affluence to spend, right? Some stretch. Because up until now, at least in our segment, it's been more price sensitive, right? And we thought with Nook, we want to build something that, that India needs, wants, but also can afford, right? Which is that
Yeah.
it's not premium or luxury, but it's something that's fits in affordability. And that's why design becomes even more important, because to understand our culture and context, and we do a lot of work with our consumers in consumer insights. In fact, the first person we hired in our team was someone who has years of experience in consumer insights in India, in two segments that we feel have done the most work in consumer insights. One is automotive and the other is mobile, right? Because
Yeah.
that's where technology cycles were fast, or the investment needed in products was much higher. In our industry, nothing like that had happened, and our journey started there. And that's also very different from a lot of startup journeys, where it's usually, founders have an idea and they build what they like or they want. But your consumers are much more diverse, right? So we started by understanding this culture and context across India, across demographics, across life stages, right? Somebody who's setting up a home, somebody who has a family, to somebody who's in college, 18-year-old, right? And really spend time in understanding not what products they need, but what their needs are in life.
Yeah.
What are their what are their pain points, lifestyle, what's a day in the life of our consumer, right? And that's where a lot of the products you see were built by understanding that need. So
Yeah.
we launched a circulator in India, right, as an example. And the need was not cooling, because you have air conditioners for cooling, or it wasn't airflow for which you have
Yeah.
ceiling fans. It was circulation, that I'm sitting in my office, it's air conditioned, but I feel stuffy, right? The room's a bit stuffy. I feel uncomfortable. There's this stale air. Or in
Tell me about it. I'm sweating right now with the AC on.
so people used to say, ki, I need like a fan, but
Yeah.
the need was circulation. And that's
Yes.
where we built a circulator.
Also
Yeah.
ultra quiet circulation, because,
Yeah.
for example, an assignment like this, you need, if you have a fan on in your room,
Yeah.
it may likely be very noisy. If you have a
Yep.
table fan, even
Yeah.
that might have enough of a sound
Yeah.
for your microphone to catch it.
Yes.
So we built in not only India's first air circulator, but actually mm, probably one of the most silent uh, circulation products of any kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
India. So it is very, very suitable for somebody who values silence, the luxury of
Yeah.
silence,
Yeah.
along with the need of circulation.
Yeah.
Yes. And I felt this while using the hand fan, right? Like your BFF, right? That it has got this ice touch, right? I always used to think that when you're outside, for instance, and you have a fan, you're just blowing hot
Hot
50
air.
degree air onto your
Yes.
face, right? It doesn't make much sense. But again, it's not an air conditioner, but just having that slight nip, as you switch on the ice touch, it gives you that, okay, very
Yes.
refreshing kind of a feel, right? Like, so I thought it's a nice touch, though it's called the ice touch.
And it was again,
That's a good one, actually. The
nice
ice touch,
touch,
that is a
a
nice
nice touch. But it was again, insights where when we were doing a lot of consumer, and we had this debate around ice touch. Now,
Yes.
here's the thing, right? Adding the ice touch increases the cost for us,
Yeah.
and it made us, a little more, higher in terms of price. But we knew that this is a feature that a customer will value, because when it's 40
Yes.
degrees outside and you've got a fan blowing hot
Yeah.
air on your face, what you really need
Yeah.
is that cooling feature. But even in
Yeah.
the BFF, there are other things. I don't know if you noticed, but it's got a mesh in the back.
Yeah.
That again was a lot of testing that we were doing with actual consumers. So one of the consumers' hair got stuck into the first
Yeah.
prototype, right? And
Okay.
he said that we have to fix this, because Indian hair is wavy. It somehow had
Yeah.
more tendency of getting stuck. We worked on it for about a month or two to figure out that a mesh can actually block the hair from getting into the fan, while also doing the function of pulling in the air.
Yeah.
And that's what we brought. It's actually a global first innovation, because
Yeah.
we were then told that this nobody across the globe has done.
And I also thought like it plays on your mind, right? Like, I switched on the fan for the first time. I'm expecting the regulator to be from 1 to 10. Okay. And I get it from 1 to 100. I'm like, wow, right? Maybe it's the same effect, but it plays on your mind that I have a fan because, again, that's not something I have ever been through,
Yeah.
right? Because the regulator is always till 5. Or like, let's say if you're on anything else, it never crossed a 10, right? But just to have that, you can keep on rolling and you feel it gets better and better and better. So I think that plays on your mind that you have this value add coming there.
Or it's also tailored to your comfort, right? Because you
Yeah,
can get that exact amount of,
precise.
because
Yes.
we've all struggled with those fans at home where it had four
Yeah,
steps in the regulator. So
yeah,
3 is too much, but 2 is too less, right?
yes.
So to
So you
give
can keep a
that,
68, no? You like
yes,
it at
Yeah.
68.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
know, those people have those very precise, I want my coffee at this temperature.
Yes.
So, we imagine
Yeah.
some of those other people who want their fan at
But
68.
that's also one of the consumer, sort of trends in millennials and Gen Z,
Mm,
which is that, there is this self-care and that
yeah.
like personalization and customization is such a, millennial, I think just trend, right? I won't call it it's a
Yeah.
fad because
Yeah.
it's running and therefore like people are getting their shoes customized and therefore to bring personalization in home appliances with the BFF. So we've had,
It's Yeah, it's also, I guess, a generational shift is also happening. Like, just to give you an example, my son is 13, almost 14, right? He doesn't need the ceiling fan to be on when the AC is running.
yes,
Right.
But both of us need it because we cannot sleep without that noise,
Hmm.
right?
it's the white
For
noise in the
40, 45 years of listening to the fan
Yeah.
humming in the background, however cool it is, I still need my fan. Like when I'm traveling abroad, I struggle often because
yeah.
that lullaby is not there. It's just-
Yeah.
It's the
right?
white noise machine in a lot
E-
of our homes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or brown noise, as I saw
I
some
also,
influencer
I
calling
mean,
it the brown noise of India.
yeah, that's right. The brown noise, which also these traffic sounds just outside. And
Yes, yes, exactly. Right.
yeah. But I also find it very interesting that whenever I'm traveling and staying in a hotel room, I'm perfectly fine with the air
Yeah.
conditioner and no fan. But somehow at home, I always leave the ceiling fan on.
Yes, yeah. So, but I always need that. So, yeah. No,
Yeah.
but it also means that as in user preferences are shifting drastically, right? Like, you would soon have a generation which has not seen an old-fashioned ceiling fan is now used to what it's called the BLDC,
Sure.
the fans, right? Which again make no noise, right? Like they're almost silent,
Yeah.
have much more speed control.
All our cooling products also have BLDC motors.
BLDC, yeah, yeah,
They range from ultra silent to silent.
yeah. So you have a generational shift in preferences happening, right? And again, yeah. So with you guys, it's not just about fans, right? You have other products. Like, so are you? So if I talk about the vacuum cleaners, for instance, right? A company like Dyson, I've had a lot of interactions with them. They think of the motor as the most important part of whatever they do, and that it manifests itself in a lot of other products that they do. If from the hair dryer to their everywhere, it's the motor is at the core. So how do you look at products like this? Like, do you look at that technology innovation that you have done that's at the core, or is the design innovation, like, how do you look at it?
Sure. So for us, it's the engineering innovation and the usability innovation in
Yeah.
something like a vacuum cleaner.
Mm,
And I'll give
mm,
examples of that, right?
yeah.
And very quickly because we're getting into, launching the full stack cordless vacuum cleaner for home
Yeah.
next week. But we also have a mattress vacuum cleaner. Let me quickly talk about both, why they're different, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we always knew when we were getting into vacuums that, and having been a user of vacuum cleaners for 5, 6 years myself,
Yeah.
that India is a very dusty country. We have a lot of construction dust in urban centers, right? Along with that, the rise of allergens, pollens, etc. And if you use a lot of vacuum cleaners that are global products, their suction is at a certain level. It'll work in a lot
Yeah.
of developed countries. If you don't do dusting in your home for a week, if you're living in Europe or
Yes.
US, you'll not find a layer of dust. But in
Yeah.
India, you don't do that for a day or two, and you can, move
Yeah.
your fingers and you'll
True.
see that line there, right? And when we build that, we knew that it has to be the highest, it has to clear out every speck of dust in your home, right? Because someone who's buying a vacuum is really pained by that, right? Because in India, vacuuming is not your primary way of cleaning your house. That's jhadu pocha.
Yeah.
In vacuum is for deep cleaning or cleaning the places where you can't mop and sweep. So therefore, even all of our products are the highest suction in their segment, and this suction you will not get anywhere across the world. So that was the engineering innovation that we did, which meant that we backtracked that at this suction, what's the motor we need, and therefore we build the motor around it. The second thing is that because the moment you increase motor, you have runtime because it's cordless. And the other thing is that, unwired everything. We have too many wires in our homes with, all the gadgets that, the corded vacuum cleaners are a thing of 2000, 2000 era. So basically, to balance that high suction, we said that let the vacuum decide how dusty your house is. Otherwise, you have to set it yourself at low, medium, high. And the other behavior we picked is when someone's cleaning and they're a clean freak, they think everything is dusty. So they operate the vacuum at the highest speed, right? Or the highest suction power. And that means that your runtimes get compromised, right? So we said you run it in a intelligent mode and let the vac decide. So you've got a great range of suction power. And the moment you put the vac on, let's say a sofa, as you move across, you will see the suction power switching. So it's optimizing the runtime for the best suction for your volume of dust. That turned out to be such a, like that the performance unlock for India has turned out to be so far great in terms of the feedback that we've received, right? Because we didn't grow up vacuuming our homes, or it's not a habit. Some people will take out the vacuum every day, some people will use it once a week or once a month, right? So to make something that's an acquired habit into making it super easy for the users was what we were after. Other thing with the Renpro, again, that was an insight, was because we sweep and mop our homes, we don't need vacuum daily. It's for, under the bed, behind the sofa, the mattress, etc. And one of the usability innovations we did was it has a bending rod, right? Because it goes under the bed, under your fridge, under the cupboards, right? And that is where really, if you don't have that, a vacuum is what we use. So that's a sort of a usability innovation.
So it goes where no vacuum has gone before.
Yes.
So that's really important because all European and American vacuum cleaning use cases are for your usual surfaces.
Yeah.
It's for your entire house. When we were living in the US, we used to vacuum the entire house. But in India, your house is getting mopped and swept every day anyway, by default. Otherwise, you can't sleep at night. So what you really need is what nobody is touching, which is the underside of sofas, almirahs, cupboards, and so on. And that is the motivator for somebody to spend on a vacuum cleaner, and that's a very India specific use case. So we put a hinge. Everybody gives straight shaft. The hinge in the middle of the shaft, which has been tested to many samples, which can then,
Just bend and go inside.
You bend it and it goes under and around also. So it's like really getting your jhadu under something and sort of sweeping it below, right? And this sort of is designed based on culture and context, right? Similarly with a mattress vacuum, right? Globally, if you look at the sort of consumer how do they clean their mattresses? It's very common to have mattress vacuum cleaners. In India, how did we clean our mattresses when we were growing up? My mom would sort of bring the mattress out. She would, use the rod to beat it, vibrate, the dust comes out, then you put it in the sun. So in India, dusting like that is so ingrained into millennials. And if you ask anyone and they say mattress should get clean, but but I don't have the time now. I don't know how to clean my mattress, right? But globally, the UV light is sort of thought of as the technical way of sanitizing a mattress, but that won't work
Okay.
in India because of the culture that's so ingrained into us around these two things as being the way to clean your, mattresses. So in our mattress pack, we actually introduce the first step is vibration and the last step
Okay.
is hot air blast. So
Okay.
what it does is the first step actually vibrates and loosens the dirt in your mattress vac, and that gives you a sort of cultural context that yes, it's doing the same. And the
Yeah.
last step at 60 degrees, when it's moving that hot air, gives you the context that it's actually like the sunlight. And
Yeah.
people have come back and say, oh, it's just like my tradition, but in a electronic.
So it's got everything from the stick to the sun
Yes.
built in, right? So,
Yeah.
if I can ask you one last question around this, we have actually gone on for a long time. One last question around this is that okay, there is a lot of insight that you bring in while designing a product, but often like we hear this a lot in gaming, right? So all the game developers say that your learning starts once you go live. Like, so are you also getting in a lot of feedback, then tweaking your products, your next version is going to, maybe fix a small problem. So how do you get that insight and how insightful is that data for you?
Thank you for asking that.
You want to answer that?
Sure. Let me take that. So, um, we are actually already on Gen 2s
Oh,
for two of our products. We launched in March 2024 with two rechargeable tabletop fans. They're called Lit and Fold,
yeah,
and they were both extremely successful. Uh, but some of the feedback that we got was that because they were rechargeable and they had runtime, um, on some speed levels or at the fag end of the battery of the battery life, as the battery is about to get discharged, the airflow becomes a little lower. So we launched version 2s this summer, and what version 2s did was basically solve the primary problem of airflow, because the Indian customer just like is he or she desires a powerful airflow. That's what we associate with a good fan. Now, when you increase the airflow, which means you increase the motor capacity, you are, to Ghazal's point earlier, you are compromising on the battery life because
mm,
more power is getting, more
yeah,
mechanical power is getting expended. To solve that, we went back and increased the battery capacity by 50%.
okay,
To be able to continue to manage, industry leading runtime with an improved airflow. So both Lit and Fold, the first two products that we launched, are now we have a
In the
generation 2 running this summer. And we intend to do that for other products also. There's another, I think you've also reviewed the Halo, which is
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
circulator fan.
Yes, the stand, yeah,
Yeah, so the fan that you saw, I think a month or a couple of months ago, was a 3 foot tall fan with
yeah,
just about comes up to your table height or
yeah,
just above the table height. And we got some feedback from customers saying they love the fan, everything's great about it, but can it just be a little bit taller? Because for some people, it's a product
it's an
that
awkward height
uh,
in a way, right?
No, I'll
it's a
tell you
great
the
height for corners, but if you're
Yeah,
very close to your table, then you
mm,
sometimes feel like it's getting hidden. I'm not able to
yeah,
see, not able to enjoy the design.
yeah.
yeah, okay.
But
So
it
we
And
has
it's
no
got the
impli-
light,
it's
it's got the halo in it.
it's
yeah,
got no implication on the performance. If
Yeah, yeah,
something, because a circulator moves 360 degree, it doesn't need to
yeah,
be as tall as your
yeah,
Farada
yeah,
is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but again, it's the culture context, right? Because
It's also the muscle memory, right? A
muscle
fan has to be
memory.
this high.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. It was the muscle memory. So when we met these customers, they were tiny fraction, about 2-3%. And they said that they came back and said, and it was a certain demographic that had that muscle memory.
Yeah,
And said if it's something that creates that extra delight, we'll do it.
yeah.
And worked on the sort of testing with the increased height and launched it this year.
yeah. But what's
Mhm.
interesting is not that we got this feedback. Like we've said a couple of times, we got this feedback, but actually every company in the world gets feedback. The
Yeah,
question is also, do you have a system to collect the
of
feedback
yeah,
and then use it
Yeah.
in some way? And that is a system and process kind of problem.
yeah,
So we built that from day one into the way we run the company.
Yeah.
where we say this feedback is valuable. A lot of the answers the customers are giving us, how do we make use of that so that we are not sitting in our bubble and just imagining things, but we're actually
Yeah.
hearing from them
Yeah.
and then transparently transmitting it across to the right teams and decision makers.
Yeah.
So that's a challenging journey, but it's been a rewarding one also.
So, Ghazal and Shalabh, thanks for being on the show. It's gone at least 10 minutes more than what we usually record, which means, which is a, is a year of how um, interesting the conversation was, at least for me, and I'm sure our listeners are going to enjoy. They are also going to enjoy because I've been boring them with AI over and again for many weeks now, because that's the sort of the flavor of the season. And this time we are giving you some hot air, cold air, suction and design. So, so I'm sure that's been a welcome change for our listeners. But thanks for being on the show. It's fascinating listening to how an Indian company is sort of getting into this very global design vibes, and I love using your products. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners will also certainly check out if you have not seen your reels already.
Thank you so much. Thank you for liking our reels. I'm sure, now that we mentioned book a few times, you'll only see more of them.
Yeah.
Because AI is listening.
Yep. Always.
Or
Always.
thank you so much. It was
Yeah.
pleasure being on your podcast.
So we'll be back again next week with another guest, lot more knowledge and insight. Till then, the podcast is available everywhere you listen to your pods.